and Pam said that she's not going to be here.
Okay.
Counselor Noel called me earlier
Yeah,
and happened to mention that, yeah, she was going to be late. So
is Holly around?
She should be.
Bill, you want to text Holly? See if
I did just text her a few minutes ago. So yeah.
Okay. And did she say things like, "I'm not coming tonight"?
I didn't get a response.
Okay.
Well, that's a cute dog. Is that the library dog?
She could be. This is Nando. Yes, she's my new puppy. She's about 6 months old now.
How old is she?
We rescued her, so she's a year old, but only 6 months socialized with people.
Okay.
So work in progress. Let's put it that.
My Olive is like 4 years old.
Is that your chicken?
Yeah.
Is Olive still laying eggs?
I think she's done. Yeah. She's pretty old at this point. She may be
I know that my
Your new dog likes to be on Zoom. I love it when pets want to be around for Zoom.
I'm at my mother's house, so I'm trying to get away from the other dog.
All right,
Recording in progress.
I think we're ready to go. We have upstairs. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to a regular meeting of the Program Services Committee. It is Wednesday, September 6th. We are being audio and video recorded. Hopefully that just started now, so the last 10 minutes of embarrassing stuff that I said is not on file somewhere. Start of the meeting, we have from Ward 1, Councilor Maria Greenberg. From Ward 2, President Albright. From Ward 5, Councilor Bill Humphrey. I am Josh Grinsman, Chair of the Committee from Ward 4. I note that we're also being joined by a few wonderful municipal employees, our Chief Operating Officer, Jonathan Yo, Health and Human Services Commissioner, Linda Walsh, and Parks, Rec, and Culture Commissioner, Nicole Banks, and our Library Director, Jill Mercurio. So, welcome, everyone. First item on the agenda is item 280-23. This is the appointment of Paul Holt as a Newton Library trustee. Mr. Holt, I will tell you, and for everyone who's here for an appointment tonight, this sort of goes for everyone. The standard operating procedure is that we will give you, the nominee, an opportunity to introduce yourself and say why you're interested in serving in the capacity for which you've been nominated or appointed. I'll then open it up to committee members to ask questions, or any other counselors who are here to ask questions, or anyone to speak on your behalf if they're here. We'll then proceed to a committee vote. After you've been voted on, don't feel obligated to stick around. You're welcome to. As you can tell from the last few minutes, it's quite a lot of fun that we have here, and it can even be entertaining at times. But we're not going to be offended if you close your laptop, log off, and go do other things. So, having said that, Mr. Holt, I want to give you an opportunity to tell us why you're interested in serving.
Why am I interested in serving on the library? Well, I think the library is one of the gems of Newton, and I had a corporate career and fundraising career, and I retired about 5 years ago, and I started using the library a lot. And I took the tour of the library, like behind the scenes, and I found it super interesting. I now have a granddaughter, and I take her to the library, and I see what they have to offer. I think it's amazing. So it's just a real interest, and I have the time now, and my background, I ran my own business, so I know how to operate businesses, and then I was a professional fundraiser for 10 years. So I know a lot about fundraising, which all nonprofits need help on. So I think I could help the library in doing that. And that's the reason.
Excellent, thank you. I want to just quickly note that we've been joined by Councilors Vicky Danberg and Councilor Holly Ryan, who's a member of the committee from Ward 8. Welcome, fellow councilors. President Albright.
So I want to thank you for being willing to serve. And I want to know if, because of your community farm activities, are we going to have more books on farming in the library?
We might have more partnerships with the library, but I don't know about that. I am co-president of the Newton Community Farm. My term is over in February, so my time will be freed up more after that. So,
Well, I would, since our Ward 6 member is missing, I would be happy to move approval if that would be what you would.
I believe he's Ward 8.
Ward 8.
I'm Ward 8, yeah.
Oh, sorry,
Oh.
sorry, I got that mixed up. Sorry.
No worries. Councillor Ryan, speaking of Ward 8.
Yeah, I was just going to thank Mr. Holt for serving, and when we're ready, I will move the nomination.
Councillor Ryan has moved approval. I will note that I spoke with your friend and neighbor, Mr. David Kalis, today,
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Holt,
Yes.
and he had serious reservations about us taking too long to approve you. So
Okay.
I will say that he spoke very favorably in support of your nomination.
Thank
So
you.
you should know that. I don't think he was able to join us tonight, but I think he did indicate support for this. So Councillor Ryan has moved approval. Any other discussion? Okay, of the 5 committee members here, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, Jacqueline, I believe that's 5-0. Mr. Holt, and again, for everyone else, what will happen is the appointment then comes up before the full council at the next city council meeting, which is in just under 2 weeks, right? Are we meeting in 2 weeks? I think we
Yeah.
are. And then the expectation will be that the full council approves the nomination. Okay. As I said, don't feel the need to stick around tonight, but you are more than welcome to.
Okay, I'll stick around for a little bit.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is item 281-23. This is the appointment of Susan Harvey as a Newton Library trustee. Ms. Harvey, I did see you earlier.
I'm here.
Okay.
Uh,
I don't believe it because I can't see you, but I'll trust you. Please go ahead. Tell us why you're interested in serving as a Newton Library trustee.
Okay. Well, Zoom magic notwithstanding, it's good to see everyone. Good evening, counselors and city staff, and Jill, especially. I'm looking forward to working with you. I'm a total library nerd. I'll just say that, like, people make fun of me about it. Okay. I've been in awe of libraries since 4th grade. I walked into the Philadelphia Public Library main branch, like marble staircases, the whole thing. And I knew my entire research project was somewhere in that building. And I'm like, I was hooked. So, to me, libraries are a celebration of curiosity, creativity, and community. And we need all of those like nobody's business right now in our culture. And so to see everyone coming together, to see all kinds of information and all kinds of resources be available to anyone who needs them is, it just makes my heart sing in this time of lots of other kinds of things happening. So I can't wait to serve the library should you all deem me worthy of that. And my background briefly is I started in politics, so I have a brief history there. I worked at Blue Cross in Massachusetts for a long time, so I've seen large organizations. I've done strategy, I've done communications, I've led teams, and I now have a boutique consulting practice that's all about helping leaders and organizations get where they're meant to go. So I look forward to bringing all of that experience to the work of the library.
Thank you very much. I believe it was it Dick Gephardt? Am I remembering that
It was
correctly?
Dick Gephardt. Yeah, I actually, who just wrote a book, which I just took out of the library today. See how it all works? Yeah.
Perfect.
Yes.
Perfect. Way to bring that back. Councillor Humphrey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also was thinking about Dick Gephardt recently, but I didn't realize he had a book out. I really appreciated the statement that you made tonight, as well as the statement that you had submitted to with your application to the mayor and the council. I was curious if there was anything in particular that you wanted to highlight that you really love about the library and what it's doing right now, and also if there's anything that you'd like to see changed, even a positive thing. It doesn't have to be saying, oh, they're doing something wrong. Just like, here's the thing I would like to see the library add to, what they currently do.
Yeah. I will somewhat tongue in cheek say I'm looking forward to them letting go of overdue fines, because I think there's actually a line item in the budget for what I contribute in fines. So my daughter is a volunteer at the library. She beat me to it. She has a shelf with her name on it in the teen section. I think that the support of youth is my favorite part. The fact that grown-ups can't even sit in the teen section tells me they really get teens and they're really about kind of each of the distinct audiences. So that's a piece that I've especially appreciated. And what I would, I think, invite us to think about where we could grow is what kind of, as we move beyond books, right, into can you lend tools or puzzles or I saw a 7-year-old taking an instrument out, borrowing an instrument today. So how can the library stay fresh and relevant as the things that people need to use out in the world are evolving?
I think those are both fantastic answers. My mother actually just drove out to the Sudbury Library last week to get something called a wood wrench, which you can use to remove large invasive shrubs. Yeah.
Like, it's the coolest thing. Like, I told you I'm a dork about that. Yeah. I think it's just fun. It's really good. And it's like the DMV, but people are happy, right? Everybody goes there, but in the best way. So
I certainly love spending time there as well. And I also appreciated you mentioning the teen section. I think our library does a tremendous job of representing and respecting our younger readers, including our teen readers, and creating that space that you mentioned for them. It's important that we mention it because unfortunately the city council and folks did receive some pretty strong criticism of that policy from someone who wasn't happy with it. And I thought Ms. Mercurio actually did a fantastic job of explaining why that policy exists and why it's important that we continue it, because the library is for everyone, but not every single part of the library is for everyone, and that's okay because there's some benefit to that as well. Ms. Mercurio, I don't know if you had any thoughts on the fines point that was mentioned earlier.
Oh, yes. I believe you'll all be very happy come January when we make the announcement. So it's on the horizon, just a little bit more time.
Just a little bit of a teaser tonight, but certainly I think that's been a huge help to a ton of libraries across the system. And as we all know, we want people to bring back the materials and not feel like they can't bring back the materials. And it's, it doesn't bring in a whole lot of money, so that's not really the point of it. And we just got to get people excited and happy about the library and take away any of those negative emotions they might have. So thank you for answering that question, and thank you to our nominee for applying for this. And I'm certainly happy to move approval on this nomination as your ward counselor.
Councilor Humphrey has moved approval. Any discussion on that motion? Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, I believe we're still at 5. That's 5-0. As I said, Ms. Harvey, it'll go on to the full council in about 2 weeks. And then everything should go well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, and have a good night if you log off.
Yeah, take care.
Next item on the agenda is item 298-23, the appointment of Sheila Butts to the Parks and Recreation Commission. Ms. Butts, tell us.
Okay, thank you very much.
Given all your work during the day, given all your work over the past several years in the city of Newton, what has brought you to volunteer for this opportunity?
Well, I thank Commissioner Banks and the mayor for putting my name in as the Ward 8 member of the Parks and Recreation Commission. I've lived in Ward 8 since 1982. I've lived in Newton since 1970 when I was in college, and I've worked in the field of recreation since 1976 in both a part-time and full-time capacity in both Newton and Lexington. So up through spring, this past spring, I've been a quote-unquote employee, and I'm looking forward to volunteering on the Parks and Recreation Commission and working with the other ward members and alternates, plus continuing to work with the really excellent staff that Newton is fortunate to have in their Parks, Recreation, and Culture Department. I'm thrilled to think that I can be a part of it, continue to be a part of it. And happy to answer any questions you might have.
Great. Thank you. Councilor Ryan.
Yes, I've known Sheila and her family for many years. Our children hung out and went to school together. She lives literally a couple of blocks down the street from me. And of course, we all know her work on in Recreation Department and Parks, Rec and Culture now. I didn't know you were no longer an employee. But anyway, I was going to come down and see you anyway. So when it's time, and it couldn't be any better choice to fill this slot. So your expertise is unbelievable. So
thanks.
When it comes time, I will move this.
Thank you, Councilor Ryan.
Let me ask just one question, Ms. Butts. It's a storied past and quite a lot of excellent experience, and I'm thrilled that you're going to be taking on this responsibility. In all your experience, what do you think is sort of the optimal way to try and get the Parks, Rec, and Culture Department the resources that it needs to manage all the resources to sustain our fields, to provide all the maintenance that is required? What do you think is the sort of best way to do that?
I think the department is well on its way to making significant improvements. I think it has to be a shared responsibility between obviously city government, the department budgeting, and the users of the fields. I think there are charges for getting permits, and there are most recently in the past 2 years, I guess, Commissioner Banks, correct me if I'm wrong, the youth sports organizations have been contributing on a per player basis in each season, and that has gone directly into the upkeep of the fields. I think that's the way to go, short of someone winning megabucks or or the $1 billion pot in one of those drawings. I think it has to be a shared responsibility between all of the citizens, because the parks, the fields, the playgrounds, they're for everybody. The open space, it's for everybody in the community, and I think so everyone needs to take some responsibility, and the heavier users perhaps a bit more responsibility. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I think it has to be a shared responsibility.
And not only does it answer the question, I think it answers it in a way that I completely agree with. And I think that's where we as a city have headed as of a few years. But I think Commissioner Banks has done a phenomenal job sort of steering us and getting that department and getting our resources the support that it needs. I think for a long time we allowed our fields to deteriorate. We allowed some of our recreational facilities to go into a state of disrepair, and we're a little bit playing catch up. But I think it has really been a priority, both to this department and also this administration. And we're starting to see a lot more resources put into that, and I think we're starting to really see the benefits of that. So
yeah, you can tell just driving around, you can tell and look at the field. I said driving around, looking at the field, you can see the amount of work our maintenance division has put into it, and the amount of money that's gone into it. And a lot of it is thanks to the money that you all have appropriated too. So
fair enough. Thank you. Councilor Ryan has moved approval. I see no other hands. Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. Thank you very much, Ms. Butts. Congratulations again. In a couple weeks, it'll be up.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. You too.
The next item on our agenda is item 299-23. This is the appointment of John Lovett III to the Commission on Disability. Mr. Lovett, if I'm not mistaken, you go by Jack, so I hope that's okay.
Correct. Thanks, Chair.
Okay. Great, glad to hear it. Let me turn it over to you and allow you to tell us why you're interested in serving on the Commission on Disability.
Sure. Actually, I have some brief remarks that I'll read from.
Sure.
Good evening, honorable members of the Programs and Services Committee. It is an honor to be here tonight for your consideration of my appointment to the Commission on Disability. I am particularly honored to be in front of this committee as Programs and Services has previously been chaired by former counselors Marcia Johnson and John Rice, both of whom I consider to be mentors. As I stated in my application, disability has been a major part of my life. As a child, I was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, now reclassified as high-functioning autism, and in college, I developed a second disability, chronic tinnitus. Both disabilities have shaped my identity and who I am. I also have two siblings with disabilities, including a brother with a more severe form of autism, who actively participates at the Price Center and Newton Athletes Unlimited programming. My motivation to join the COD is not to pursue a specific agenda, rather it is to bring a new perspective. When I met with the chairs of the COD, Eileen and Ema, as well as Jeannie, they discussed that originally the COD was devoted to people with physical disabilities, but in recent years has expanded its focus to also include people with mental illness, autism spectrum disorders, and other disabilities. I hope to bring the perspective of someone on the autism spectrum to the COD, as well as a younger voice. While I'll be joining the COD as a resident, I am also an employee of City Hall and would bring to the COD my experience in local government. I also have 4+ years of experience at Northeastern University in event planning, and I believe I'd be a strong asset in helping plan and organize events with the COD to spread disability awareness. In closing, I would be truly honored to have this opportunity to serve both the Newton community and the disability community as a member of the COD. My parents moved my family to Newton in 2006 because of its superior services for people with disabilities. Newton has been very good to my family and me, and I wish to give back. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much. I want to know that we've been joined by Councilor Brenda Noel from Ward 6, who's a member of the committee. Councilor Noel.
Mr. Lovett, I really appreciate your comments, your thoughtfulness. I need to check the address. Are you in Ward 6 or Ward 5?
I'm Ward 6, right at the bottom.
I'd be thrilled to move this when it's time, and I appreciate your service.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Noel. Councilor Humphrey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, Jack, always great to see you, and thanks for all your hard work for the city. I was trying to remember when I was looking through your resume, did you do the student government at Newton South like I did?
It's funny. So Newton South, Lionsboro actually did a alumni profile of me yesterday, and I was Senate president, I believe, 4 or 5 years after you.
Right, because I think I remember, yeah, you came up to me one time when I was coaching at speech and debate after school.
That's right.
You wanted to talk about, because I had written the Constitution that you guys were still using at that point. So I also was thinking about it because I noticed that you mentioned in your resume that you had received the Aldermanic Scholarship, and that's something that we've been talking about recently because at some point it lapsed. And we'd like to get it going again because, like you, I was also a recipient of that scholarship back in the day. And so as a city councilor, I feel like we should definitely get it rolling again. So I appreciated you mentioning that in your application. And again, I'm thrilled that you're going to be joining the Commission on Disability and bringing this very important perspective to our commission. Thanks.
Thanks, Councilor.
Thank you, Councilor Humphrey. And congratulations on the Constitution longevity accomplishment. Councilor Ryan.
Yeah, once again, I've known Jack for a long time. My son and Jack went to school together and we're in robotics together. And I'm glad that the Newton Disability is now going to have people that, you can't see their disability, but it's well needed, and the perspective that Jack will bring. I work in other areas with people of all disabilities, and it makes a difference. So thanks, Jack, for doing this.
Thanks, Councilor.
Thank you, Councilor Ryan. President Albright.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Jack, I want to thank you as well for being willing to serve on this commission. And I and some others on the council actually also have an interest in there are lots of families in Newton with adult disabled children living at home because the programs are few and there's no place for them to live. And it becomes a crisis at some point along the way. Where are these kids, adult kids, going to go? And I have an interest in getting a small group together to talk about that. So I'm hoping that you might be willing, as you get your feet on the ground with the commission, be willing someone who could participate in that conversation.
Absolutely, Madam President, and I have direct experience with that. I'm actually one of the legal guardians for my brother with severe autism. He lives at home, and he's on a wait list somewhere for a group home that probably will take maybe a decade to get off of. So I agree, it's an incredibly urgent issue, and I'd love to be part of that effort.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
All right, seeing no other hands, I believe Councilor Humphrey has moved approval.
This Councilor Noel.
I don't know what you heard. Like I said, I believe Councilor Noel has moved approval.
Yeah, I've got 4 more months at this. Don't try to curtail my power.
Uh-oh. Okay, sorry. I froze. I think I froze. I apologize. Councilor Noel, you've moved approval, yes?
I move approval heartily.
Great. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, I believe that is 6, Jacqueline? 6-0?
Yes, that is correct.
Excellent, thank you. Mr. Levitt, thank you for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And like everyone else, it will move forward in a couple of weeks.
Thank you.
All right. The next item on our agenda is item 66-23. This is the discussion and possible amendment to section 1272. This is the one where we're referring to as the Sustainable Containers Ordinance. And I believe Councilor Danberg is here. I think she's going to sort of speak to where the group working on this is at, maybe even introduce some of her co-workers on this who have helped to put together this ordinance. But hopefully folks saw in the Friday packet, there was a good analysis of summary and the work that the committee had done. Beyond that, there was an email today, which is a little late, and I apologize for that. But Jacqueline will definitely include that email in the report, okay, because we will be using it tonight with some sort of last-minute updates, I think, since the Friday packet came out. Some very small, but some last-minute changes that were made. So, Councilor Danberg, do you want to speak to the state of affairs and where we're at? And if I've misstated any of that, please set me straight. But you're on mute, Councilor Danberg. Councilor Danberg, you're on mute, which I would normally love, but tonight I do want to hear from you. Okay.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. We have been working on this ordinance now for a little over 2 years. We call ourselves the group that has been working on it, the Plastics Reduction Working Group. We have been very fortunate to have a number of dedicated members to this and a number of other groups that have weighed in, many groups from the city. Sunwoo Kang, who is chair, I believe, of the, I call it the Sunwoo, why don't you give the name of it? Because I always get it wrong. I'm sorry.
Thank you. I'm Sunwoo Kang, and I'm the chair of the Sustainable Materials Management Commission.
Yes, thank you. And Alan Gordon, who has worked with us, Shara Ertel, Marcia Cooper has weighed in a lot on this. We have reached out to the schools, restaurants through the Chamber of Commerce. Thank you very much. Greg Riedman, who has spent a lot of time working with us on this. We've reached out also to the Newton Wellesley Hospital, which is really doing a marvelous job and is Greg Riedman weighed in today with a letter. I hope you've all had a chance to read it, giving his support. And I would like to thank the Chamber, all the stakeholders, the committee members, Jonathan Yo, Linda Walsh, Amy Mistral, for all of their feedback and all of the time that they have spent with us that we greatly appreciate. We have some very late tweaks that we've made some non-substantive changes, just changes in language, and we've dropped a couple of items that Alan Gordon will speak to in a minute. We have separated out use, quite a while ago, we separated out the use of single-use water bottles for a later look, and we hope to bring that up probably after the first of the year. So we would now like to hear the comments of programs and services tonight. And if it's the will of the committee, after you have heard from all of us and we've been able to answer all of your questions, we would like to vote it out tonight if possible. So I'm going to turn it over now to Alan Gordon.
Mr. Gordon.
Thank you, Councilor Danberg and Chair Krinsman, and the rest of the councilors on the committee. So, as Councilor Danberg said, there was information in the Friday packet. I can give a really quick summary. This is, I think, the fourth time we've been in front of programs and services. In the latest iteration, we made a few tweaks. The biggest probably set of changes were, and I see that Jen Wilson from the legal department is on. The legal department, Jen and Andrew Lee reviewed this and did some cleanup, which was excellent. So there were, if you looked at a red line compared to the last version, there were a bunch of changes that were legal changes. Then, yesterday Greg had reached out and asked about the small size, the 2 to 4 ounce condiment packages, if you get your dressing on the side, if you order takeout, etc. And he made the point about the recyclability of those, and we reached out to Anita Trabert and confirmed that those small items actually aren't recyclable in your curbside bin. And so we made some tweaks to address that the takeout containers can be dispensed, food can be dispensed in containers 4 ounces or larger. We removed another line that added some confusion. So that's the cleanup that you got today. I'm happy to answer more questions on that if that's appropriate. We also had a little additional input from Linda Walsh, and Commissioner Walsh, who's on today as well. I'm sure she's here to bring this up. Has some concern about the enforceability of the prohibition on the intentional release of helium balloons. So one more small tweak we'd like to make is to that section, which I believe Commissioner Walsh is okay with, which is to change that language to say that we discourage the intentional release. That is one of the changes we had made from the July 12th meeting, the last time we were in front of the programs and services. We had at that point the prohibiting the sale and distribution and intentional release of helium balloons. We removed the sale and distribution part, and we're going to back that down a little further. I think that's the summary I wanted to give for now. I'm happy to answer questions. And as Councilor Danberg said, want to thank Greg and the other stakeholders who have really worked with us through this process to get us to what we think is a good compromise that will help reduce a lot of single-use plastic in this city of Newton.
Thank you. And before any questions, I also want to mention that I'm sorry that I forgot to mention the Brimmer and May Sustainability Committee. It's a club that we have the chairman here, I believe head or president of the club, who is a high school student. He would like to just say a few words and I think I will just turn it over to him. They did a tremendous job in doing all of the legwork for the survey of 400 plus restaurants that that we surveyed. It's over a year ago now. So I'm going to turn that over.
I'm not mistaken. That's Evan Mike Kelly, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
Mike
Thank
Kelly,
you
are
so
there?
much. Yes, I am. Sorry. I am actually on a school trip, and it's kind of really dark here, so you won't be able to see me either way. However, I first would like to thank you all for letting me come here. It is definitely an honor to work with the Plastics Working Committee for now 2 years, and to really, put down the work for this ordinance. And I'm very confident after, 3+ meetings now after coming here. What I would probably say, about youth and how plastics is, important for us to get rid of plastics, especially with the Charles River and leaking into a environment that, is so important, especially for youth. It's important for us to see the Charles River. We know how much the Charles River has come a long way from, the 1980s, 1990s when, George H.W. Bush, he made the exclamation that it was the harbor of shame. We came so far and we can't let it revert back. So, going to do this plastic reduction is definitely a step forward. And I just put my full confidence in this committee to do the right thing and pass this bill. It's just an amazing opportunity, and I would like to thank you all for that.
Thank you very
Great.
much, Evan.
Thank you.
So I think we would be happy to take questions now and comments from Programs and Services Committee.
All right. Thank you, Councillor Danberg. Thank you, Mr. Gordon, Ms. Kong. Mr. Gordon, I just want to ask, I think the last version I saw still prohibits the intentional release of helium-filled balloons. It requires weighted attachments in the sale of helium balloons. I thought in your comments you talked about just discouraging, but I think the current draft is to prohibit it, right?
The last draft, correct, prohibits, and the feedback from Commissioner Walsh came late in the day today on this issue. So that you're correct. We would, assuming that you vote this out today, I would make that last little tweak before it went in front of the full city council, if that's acceptable.
So I'm just trying to understand. Are you, Councillor Danberg, are you no longer looking for a prohibition on intentional release?
No, we are no longer looking for a prohibition. We are strongly discouraging, the language that we would put in is that we strongly discourage the release of helium balloons. Linda Walsh, in fact, perhaps Commissioner Walsh would like to say a couple of words on that.
Yeah, Commissioner Walsh, I was going to ask, are you okay to speak on this?
Absolutely. It is about enforcement, and the word prohibit is a strong word. It requires enforcement. So for an intentional release of a helium balloon, it would be very difficult, if not impossible, to consistently and equitably enforce if someone were to do that at a wedding. It just puts a burden on the department, frankly. And I did have a conversation earlier today and just clarified with the law department, what would enforcement look like? And because it says prohibit, we would be required to enforce on that. And I think that can't be consistently or equitably applied. So Councillor Danberg was open to suggesting some other language there. And quite honestly, we had a great conversation about, we're just trying to educate people about how dangerous that is, how dangerous the intentional release of helium balloons into the environment is. And if our goal is education, then it can stay in there. My initial request was to remove the line, but I understand about educating. So this is our opportunity to educate. And if we strongly discourage, then it doesn't put the burden on our department to have to levy fines or send warning letters or whatever that might look like as we work with our law department to try to enforce the complaints that come into the department. So that was, albeit a little bit late in the day, conversation, compromise at this point.
Thank you, Commissioner.
So I'll note we've been joined by Councilor Lyle Baker, our 7th member of the committee. It's interesting because in a number of the areas around this ordinance, I've been thinking we were sort of, going too far, or looking to scale it back or move the implementation date. With this one, I'm sort of on the other end of the spectrum. I don't really see the benefit, but I wonder. I hear your concern. I hear what you're saying. At one point, I feel like there was language in there that talked about the planned intentional release of helium balloons. And I felt like maybe that was more sort of the point we were getting at, that people really, we don't want them to have an event where they intend to do this and then do this. And if we added the word planned back in, maybe that would give you some comfort that it's the type of thing that obviously the city wouldn't give a permit for if folks came looking for that, and it would be more enforceable, or at least in an equitable manner. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Unfortunately, I don't think that helps at all. It still would require our department to figure out if it was planned. Was it a wedding? Was it a pre-planned event? Enforcing something like that on the ground in real time with a department that, as you know,
or in the air, really,
right, has a lot of priorities that they need to set. This one felt, it really felt like that. I couldn't support it at this point, the way it was written. And I don't think planned helps because it would still be, most of these complaints come in after the fact. It's what happens with plastic bags. And I was sharing some of our challenges still with plastic bags and new businesses that come in. And it really puts us in a position of writing warnings, writing fines, trying to a little bit investigate if that complaint was valid. And quite frankly, we have really important things that we're doing right now. And this one, I really can't support for that reason. It would be a lot of work. And albeit, probably not a lot of complaints, but in this city, we have very interesting Monday morning phone calls and emails with very specific things that happened over the weekend. And if this is one of them that we are required to investigate and enforce, that would be a problem.
Understood. Okay. Thank you. I would love, there are sort of several different components to this ordinance. It would probably be helpful if we can sort of focus on one and then move to the next. I apologize that I've gotten us started on helium balloons, but let me just see if other folks want to talk about helium balloons first, and then maybe we'll move to the next thing. President Albright. Or are you on a different topic?
Actually, partially on the same topic.
Okay.
The other part of that section is that they have to be sold with some material that will keep them down. So are you comfortable with being able to enforce that from the stores that sell these helium balloons?
Yes, we are.
Okay, that's good. And the I wanted to ask about the condiments thing as well. Is the language that we have in our draft the final draft language, or is there more language to come on that? The condiment containers.
Alan, why don't you speak to that?
Yeah, sure. So the language in the Friday packet was not exactly final, but the language, I believe everyone received an email today. I think it was today, right? Or
yes.
With the updated language, it's the one you received today. So it was not. So sorry about that. It was not the one that was in the Friday packet. We had.
And why don't you just give that language?
It's the language larger than 4 ounces was the additional language, right?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And can I ask a curiosity question? Ever since we've been working on this, every time I'm in the supermarket, I see the people that buy, tons and tons of single-use water bottles. And then I see, and I buy my meats and they come in black plastic. Are we going to ever do anything about that segment of the world that supermarkets that just, I know that it's hard enough doing what we're doing, but it seems even bigger, those purchases.
I would personally, the answer is I would like to do that also. Maybe we, once this passes, those who are interested in discussing other items, I'd be happy to be part of a group, plastic reduction working group, take two, that's looking at other items that we might consider. I'd be happy to be involved in that effort.
And that is true. We removed plastic bottles, single-use plastic water bottles at the mayor's request because she did not feel that she was ready to go on board with banning single-use plastic water bottles yet. So after this hopefully will be put to bed, we will start working on that piece.
Yeah, no, I understand that compromise, but I mean, it feels to me like what's going on with sales in the supermarket when people fill their carts with these mega things of single-use water bottles. That's even a bigger problem than what you were planning to tackle. And I was just hoping that at some point, and whether it's at the city level or the state level, we can work on that as well. So, but I think I'm there with everything else. Thank you.
Thank you, President Albright. Councilor Humphrey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I did want to go back to the balloons topic. I agree with you, Chair Krinsman. I understand that there's limited staff resources and so forth. I'm very sympathetic to that. But this has gotten watered down so many times over the course of this effort. And I think that helium balloons are just such an ecological atrocity and a waste of helium for that matter. And I would have been inclined to say, okay, maybe we at least focus on the intentional release component. And yes, that would require some investigation and trying to figure out if there was a pre-planned release. But again, I don't think that it's going to be something that happens all that often, because I think mostly people want to comply with ordinances and things like that. So it would, just by having it as an ordinance, would discourage some of those. But, and I know, we're probably not talking about something like the famous incident in Cleveland, Ohio in 1986, where they tried to United Way tried to set the world record for release of balloons, and they sent up 1.4 million balloons, which then proceeded to come down not only all over the landscape and the surrounding airports, but in all the rivers and the Great Lakes and everything. And it was just a huge nightmare. But there's also like smaller events that we could imagine happening in Newton. And yes, that you might get some scenarios where someone's trying to conceal the fact that they're doing an intentional planned release at their event. But I think the more realistic scenario is what Chair Krinsman mentioned, which is, somebody is trying to organize a significant event. They might even be trying to get permits, and part of their plan is a balloon release thing. Yeah, I guess we could try to focus on just educating people not to do that and discouraging them from doing it. But I don't really see that it would be such an overtaxing thing to actually put it in the ordinance and say, and you could even say like some sort of like minimum threshold or something. Not that I want to encourage it under that minimum threshold, but I'm really having a hard time believing that this is going to be such an overwhelming demand on staff resources that it's going to distract from preventing an E. coli outbreak or whatever. So I don't understand how this particular one got watered down so much when it just seems like very straightforward and obvious to me that we should be banning the intentional release of balloons at these events. It just doesn't need to happen, and people should be fined for doing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Humphrey. Councilor Baker, good evening.
Hey, Matt. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Colleagues, apologies for arriving late. I guess the question is the way the ordinance is framed, there's this particular provision that talks about a specific action, but the rest of it talks about sale. And I'm just curious for the drafters of the ordinance, whether there was any thought just saying, look, the sale of helium balloons is not permitted. I mean, is this because helium balloons tend to get released? That's part of the challenge. I'm not sure that that is a remedy I would go with, but that's easier, it seems to me, than enforce than to go after the fact and find somebody during and say, wait a minute, you just released, and having our health department or the police or whoever is available trying to enforce the release ordinance. I happen to agree with the idea that it's a bad idea, and I didn't know about the example that Councilor Humphrey pointed to, which sounds just amazing, but amazingly bad.
Famous balloon release of 1986.
Famous. Now, there's a whole cartoon by the Disney company called Up that's built around balloons, right?
Another good example. Yeah.
Sure, I don't want to discourage that, but if there really is a public policy here that says that it's very hard to keep helium balloons from going up, then do we want them sold at all? I'm just asking. I'm not sure I'm ready to go there, but I'd like to have some education about that. So that's my question.
I mean, I think that I don't want to speak for the presenters, but I think the requirement to attach weights to the helium balloons was designed for that purpose. Sort of a compromise to say we're not going to prohibit the sale, but we're going to do everything we can to prevent the release of those helium-filled balloons up into the atmosphere.
Well, can I
Jonathan
respond out of order? Sorry.
Jonathan,
I see that Jonathan has his hand up. Let me get through the comments. Jonathan will be after Councilor Greenberg and then Mr. Gordon. So Councilor Baker, were you all set?
No, mine was really a question. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Councilor Greenberg.
Thank you, Chair. I think restricting or enforcing the release of helium balloons is overreach. I think we have bigger fish to fry. I think we need to concentrate on working on getting rid of single-use water bottles and other large plastic uses, and not waste Health and Human Services time by trying to enforce the release of 10 balloons on a Sunday morning. I just think there's more important issues for our city to deal with. And I think it'll just make people angry instead of wanting to learn more about the dangers of helium release. I think education is the way to go.
Thank you, Councilor Greenberg. Mr. Yo?
Hey, good evening. Quick point regarding the intentional release issue. If there was an event planned, even with the language as we have discussed, if there was a planned event, say at a park, where that included intentional release, we would just prohibit that event from happening or correct that so that the release was not going to be happening. We do not think it's practical or a good enforcement strategy, or we're capable of doing it, of enforcing who's intentionally releasing and who isn't intentionally releasing balloons from their backyards or wherever. We just do not see pursuing that enforcement at the current time. And I don't think that's a good use of attempt to use of our resources. So, if there was an event planned, like on a park somewhere that included such a thing, Councilor Humphrey, we would definitely prohibit that and stop it from happening with the language that's being discussed. So,
let me ask this, Mr. Yo. If the ordinance says, we strongly discourage helium balloon release, on what grounds would that permit be denied?
Well, it's up to the city to decide what events get to happen in parks. If somebody was planning a launch of balloons, we would correct it and change it first. So we get to decide, what happens on our property. So, I think we would take a hard line against that. I've not heard of anyone these days really doing that intentionally. It seems to be something that's from 10, 20 years ago now. People aren't really intentionally doing this anymore. And I really don't see us pursuing enforcement of which kids are intentionally releasing from their 6-year-old birthday party in the backyard. So you know, I think dealing with the sale and the getting them weighted is probably the best use of city resources. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gordon.
Yeah, I was just going to respond to Councillor Baker's question. We did have the sale and distribution prohibited in an earlier draft, and I believe it was decided or requested that we remove that. Perhaps at the last meeting, I believe you may have been on vacation or you were not there when that was discussed. But there was a discussion on that and it was removed. So I wanted to make sure you were aware of that. That's it.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks, Mr. Gordon. President Albright.
Thank you.
So a comment or a question to Mr. Yo. I was wondering if the Parks and Rec Department could put, they have rules and regulations for using our parks. Could they just add one?
Yes.
That would be just in advance. It's there. They see it when they sign up. And then, you don't have to enforce it, but it's there.
Yeah. I think also, too, we can work with schools to make sure that there isn't a school event somehow. I don't think schools would be doing it these days, but we can double check to make sure that Newton Public Schools is not involved in any intentional balloon releases. We'd be happy to do that.
Thanks.
Councilor Ryan.
Yeah, I'm going to be quick on this. Education is going to be the key on this, on the damage that it does. I'd like to outlaw it myself, but it like Linda Walsh said, it could be a problem to enforce. So we're good at educating, and there's a lot of other things that we have to educate on that were originally part of this ordinance too. But I mean, there still seems to be in other parts of the country they do this. I'm gonna cringe when I say this, but like the blue and the pink balloons and gender release parties. But it's another thing that they do. But I don't see it done much around here anyway. But I think we could get an education campaign on this, because I don't think a lot of people think about this. So just to get people thinking about it, knowing it, and a lot of people just won't do it once they know. So I'm going to have something to say on the whole ordinance later. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Appreciate everyone sort of weighing in. I'm still with Councilor Humphrey on this one. I would like to actually just prohibit it. I also agree that I don't think it's going to be an enforcement headache, but if that's not where the committee's at, they're not. What I want to say, though, is that I'm not comfortable adding language into an ordinance that says we strongly discourage something. That seems foolish to put in an ordinance. If we discourage it, great, we discourage it, but that language is superfluous. So that's what the proposal is, though, nonetheless. So we sort of have three options here. We can prohibit the intentional release, we can strongly discourage the intentional release, or we can be silent on it and just require weights. Okay, those are sort of the three options I see before us. I'm happy to get a sense of the committee which way we want to go on that one. President Albright?
Can the ordinance say something like, instead of saying we strongly discourage, we expect that Newton residents will not release balloons and not intentionally release balloons? Set it as an expectation?
I mean, it's to me, it's a similar thing. Either you can do it or you can't. There are plenty of things we don't want people to do, but that's why we have ordinances.
Okay, if you're looking for education, then putting it there helps. Being silent on it may not help.
Councilor Noel.
I would vote for a ban on helium balloons.
Are you talking the ban on sale of helium balloons? Or
yeah,
are you talking ban on intentional release?
No, I'm in alignment with you and Councilor Humphrey on the sale.
No, I think we're talking about banning intentional release. I don't want to speak for Councilor Humphrey may support ban on sale too. I wasn't there.
I guess I agree with the conversation that it's silly to, I don't love like discourage, like ups, down, up, thumbs up, thumbs down. And as much as I think like, you know, everyone has a good sense about balloons right now, I think we should, you know, I think we should ban the release.
Okay. Again, I see sort of three options, and these are all three options that are whatever the section of the following prohibitions that are scheduled to take effect under the modified language on March 1st. This is number one. It's 2 sentences long. The first sentence reads, "The intentional release of helium-filled balloons is prohibited." The second sentence, I think no one has a problem with. Second sentence is, "Any helium balloons must be sold with weighted attachments designed to limit unintentional release." So we're explicitly talking about the first sentence. I think the three options again are leave it as is, prohibit intentional release. Option 2 is to change that sentence to say something about strongly discouraging the intentional release of helium balloons. And option 3 is to be silent on it. Okay. Committee members, you understand those three options? Okay. Can you please select one of the three options, and we'll see if any of the three options then has support from the committee. Councilor Greenberg?
Just a question. If we choose option 1, where they're prohibited to be released, that includes enforcement, correct?
Yeah. Again, I think Councilor Humphrey and I are of the mind that it probably will not be overly onerous, and would be complaint driven, and we'll have to see how much that happens. But I think it's a stronger statement in the ordinance.
Well, I think
yes, to be fair, to answer your question, yes, it would require enforcement, and that I believe is Commissioner Walsh's concern.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. President Albright?
So I'll just add my comments about, and I hadn't said it earlier, but I mean, at weddings, at all kinds of events that we know nothing about, they're private events, and it's complaint driven. It's you could have 20 of these complaints on a Monday morning. I can't possibly see how the public health department should be sending people around. And where would you even send them? To the church where the wedding took place? It just makes no sense to me.
Councilor Greenberg, your hand's still up, or you're back?
Oh, sorry about that. I'll lower it.
Councilor Noel?
So I think most, I find myself in a circuit of late 20s, early 30-year-olds getting married, and they're much more savvy than any of us about the environment. And I don't think we're having an influx of balloons being released at weddings. Most people know better, and I agree with Councilor Greenberg that it's an education thing. But I think I'd either rather remain silent or have a ban. I think discourage is just silly. Discourage means nothing. So, and I don't think there's a barrage of balloons being released at weddings. I think people aren't even doing rice anymore because it bloats the birds. Like, everyone's much smarter than any of us on this call. No offense to everybody, but the young people today know the score on the environment.
Thank you, Councilor Noel. And I, for one, recognize just how many people are smarter than I am, including on this call. So no offense taken by me. Okay. Either with a physical hand or your electronic hand or something. Option 1 is intentional release prohibition. Option 2 is discouraging, and option 3 is silent. How many would support option 1 to retain the language about prohibiting the intentional release? 3. Excellent. How many would prefer to amend that language so that it discourages the intentional release? 1, 2, 3, 4. Councilor Baker? 4. Okay. And how many want to remain silent? 0. Right? Okay. So the will of the committee is to modify that as the proposal was. I don't think we have that language in front of us, but it is something to the effect of the City of Newton strongly discourages the intentional release of helium balloons. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Great. there are several other components to this. So I'm sorry that we got we got waylaid into helium balloons, but we can now release that topic and move on to the other things. Councillor Baker, or is that just still an adamant, passionate vote for discouraging language? Okay. Anything else? Anyone wants to say about this? Councillor Greenberg. You're on mute, Councillor Greenberg.
Sorry.
Yep.
Could I have the working group explain the single-use accessories at food establishments? I'm not really clear on what's prohibited and what's not. It's number 5.
Alan, go ahead.
Sure. So single-use accessories, which would include, fork, knife, spoon, ketchup pack, a napkin, etc. What's prohibited is putting any of those items into a takeout order except upon the request of the customer. But there are some carve-outs to that, such as restaurants can have self-service stations where someone pulls their own, fork or the knife or whatever they need from, you go into Anna's or Chipotle or whatever, they have those. So those are allowed.
I mean, the way I understood it, and Mr. Gordon, correct me if I'm wrong, it was largely a shifting of the responsibility from the restaurants just giving out takeout accoutrements to every single person. It was some indication that the person actually wanted it, whether it was clicking a box on an electronic order form, whether it was helping themselves to it at a stand. It was basically a shifting of the burden so that the customer had to actually choose in some way, a very easy way, to actually receive those materials. Is that right? Correct.
Either they request it or they can, as you said, pull it from a self-service station. That's correct.
And Councillor Greenberg, again, I don't want to speak for them, but I think this was to avoid the situation in which the restaurant gives these materials out to every single person, whether they need them or not, and it just, pollutes the environment with unnecessary materials.
And are these accessories to be compostable or are they plastic?
They are not required to be compostable. I can explain that if you want more detail, but they aren't required to be compostable. Want me to explain why we didn't require that? Yeah. Okay. So
speak a bit louder, and I'll hear you.
Sure. So, compostable, any compostable food serviceware, it's probably only useful to have compostable food serviceware if it's actually being composted. If you have compostable food serviceware and then it just goes in the regular trash, it actually has a higher carbon footprint than plastic food
really?
serviceware.
Wow.
If Newton had provided curbside composting, then maybe we would think about requiring compostable food serviceware, but we're, I think, not quite there yet on that issue. So that's why we initially had some requirements around compostable utensils, I think in an early drafts, but we removed that once we did more research and really realized the carbon footprint of the compostable food serviceware.
Okay.
That's the thinking.
Thank you. And how will these food establishments be aware of this change, and how will their customers know that they need to ask?
I think the establishment can ask the customer.
Yeah, the establishment can say, do you need utensils? Do you need ketchup? Do you need mustard? Whatever. The establishment's allowed to ask them if they want it, right?
Okay.
Most of the most of the popular, I know not every restaurant uses, if you use Toast and use some other things, you can configure that very easily to have a spot where you request utensils. So they may need to make a small change to their online ordering systems for orders that are placed online. I think Grubhub and DoorDash and those places have those where you can request that you want or don't want utensils. And certainly we will through, I see John Sisson's on as well. We've spoken to John, and we have the ability we have the email addresses as at least recorded at the city of all, or the city has of all the food proprietors, and we will certainly inform them of these changes when this passes.
Okay. I just also want to say how grateful I am for all the hard work you guys have done. It's really admirable, and I really appreciate it.
Right, and Greg Riebman, through the chamber, he's been in the dining collaborative of the chamber, who we've met with a few times. We'll work to get the message out in as many ways as we can.
Thank you.
Shara Ertel, I apologize. I don't know you. Do you mind introducing yourself? Tell us what's up.
Hi, thanks. I'm also part of the working group. I've just sort of been a little silent here, sitting in the background, letting Sunwoo and Alan sort of drive everything. But and I also have a business that is a low waste store. But I just wanted to weigh in related to the comment that was just made, that the overall approach that I think this group was taking is trying to find ways to reduce plastic that are reasonable, where there's alternatives that exist. And so specifically around accessories, things like utensils and the condiments and things like that, there aren't readily available, compostable, recyclable, and whatever reusable alternatives that could easily be swapped out. So that's also why the approach was more the idea of skipping the stuff, so that if you don't want it, you don't have to have it. If you want it, then you get it. But trying to reduce the plastic and other waste in that way by just avoiding single use, which effectively becomes zero use when people don't want it at all, and trying to address it that way. So I just wanted to weigh in there that there just aren't viable alternatives that are recyclable, reusable, or compostable for those kinds of items.
Thank you. I want to note that when I read earlier drafts of this, one of my concerns had been the effective date and the time to implementation. I know there was some earlier language about, allowing businesses to use inventory that they had in existence. I think the push to March 1st is terrific. I think that's the right sort of balance. I think that's the way to go. I think it gives enough notice to our business owners. And I think it also gives sort of a hard and fast deadline of when we're going to start doing this. I saw that Greg Riebman wrote, and there was support for that, and I'm hopeful that that's one of the reasons why. I think it's in good shape. So, am I to understand that Councilor Ryan has a motion to make? I could have sworn just by looking at the screen the way I did that I could tell Councilor Ryan wanted to make a motion.
Yeah, I'm gonna say something first, and I'm gonna make a motion. I'm happy and sad at what has happened. I know to get things through, sometimes we have to water them down to get compromises. I've talked to a lot of the stakeholders on a regular basis. Councilor Danberg, Mr. Riebman, restaurant owners in the city of Newton, and being a restaurant owner myself in the past, I did own 2 restaurants. So I feel I knew a lot about this and cost and, what you really want to do, but sometimes you're prohibited from doing. But saying that, I also want to continue. I do not want to just, okay, this is it, it's done, walk away. I do want to get rid of plastic bottles, not in 5 years, but soon. Let's get that done. and I want to help to do that. I want to work on figuring out how to get rid of the waste, a lot of the waste that we're using that is so unnecessary. And the containers that it's not that difficult. And so with all that said and moving forward, I would like to move this to a vote tonight. Thank you.
Councilor Ryan has moved approval, as we discussed tonight, with the modification of the, if I'm not mistaken, with the modification of the helium balloon from a prohibition to a strongly discouraged. Any discussion on that motion? Before we discuss that, let me just quickly say that we've been joined by Councilor Emily Norton. Welcome, Councilor Norton. All right, all those in favor of approval, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Danberg, Mr. Gordon, the whole working group. Appreciate it. This will go to the full council in 2 weeks.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you, Greg, for working with us to get this thing through. We really appreciate it.
And I would say one last thing, and that is that a lot of my fellow counselors have mentioned that they would like to see other things go forward. The ban of single-use plastic water bottles. I think there is no one who doesn't understand the problems that and what a disaster all these bottles are to be in our environment, and we will be working on that. And I think that as we move forward in time, as people get more educated, as people understand the dangers of plastic. I myself think that most plastic items ought to stop being made. And we need to go to the manufacturers in order to have that happen. But that's not going to happen anytime soon. And we have to do the things that we can control, and we can control what happens in Newton. We cannot control the state or the nation. And by doing what we're doing, we are putting pressure from below to the powers above us to do the same thing. And so I want to thank everybody on this committee and everyone that I have mentioned before, and everyone out there that might be listening in who also believes that plastics are bad for our environment, and everything that we can get rid of is a step in the right direction. So thank you.
Great. Thank you all. All right. The next item on our agenda, we have several reappointments. So we'll see. Maybe we can do these quickly. Item 291-23. This is the reappointment of John Neville to the Parks and Rec Commission. Any discussion on that? Any motions on that? Councilor Humphrey has. Councilor Humphrey?
I'm moving approval.
Councilor Humphrey has moved approval. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. Item 292-23, the reappointment of Elizabeth Wilkinson to the Parks and Rec Commission. Any discussion on that, or Councilor Noel? Councilor Noel has moved.
Isn't that Ward 2, not Ward 6?
Nope.
I think it's
Nope.
Trowbridge.
Ward 6. Ward 6, my friend. Don't take away my strong activist constituents from me, Councilor Humphrey.
Two Trowbridge streets.
Oh, okay.
You know, there's 3 Orchard Aves. So.
Well, I guess we can't open that can of worms tonight. I was already thinking about that.
Okay, so happy to move this. Thrilled with this reappointment. Happy to move it.
Councilor Noel has moved approval. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
Councilor Ryan, that was approval or opposed?
Approval.
Okay. Any abstentions? Okay. Unanimous. Item 293-23, the reappointment of Byron Buzz Dunker to the Parks and Rec Commission. Councilor Humphrey?
Moving approval from Ward 5.
Councilor Humphrey has moved approval. Wait a minute, what street does he live on?
Southwick, around the
Are we
corner.
sure there's only one of those?
I've been to his house, so.
All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. Yeah, Buzz has been on for a while. Item 294-23, reappointment of Arthur Magny to the Parks and Rec Commission.
That would be mine.
President Albright has moved approval.
I have.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? 85-23, the reappointment of John Schwartz to the Biosafety Committee. I think this is you, Humphrey, right?
No, this is actually the other upland, so this is Ward 2.
Yeah, I think that one's mine too.
I looked in the.
We're going to have to straighten out these duplicative roads and streets. I mean, we can at least make one a street and one a road, right?
Well, and there's Upland Ave in Ward 8.
Which is fine, because that's Ave. President Albright has moved approval. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Item 296-23, the reappointment of Dina Conlon to the Licensing Board. I don't know who this is.
I don't remember. It's
But
not
President Albright has moved approval. All
Is
those
that
in favor,
Ward
please say
2 as
aye. I'm sorry?
Was that Ward 2 as well?
I don't know, but why did you move approval?
I did. Well, it's fine.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. And finally, item 297-23, the reappointment of Michael Goldman to the Farm Commission. Who's this? Is this you, President Albright?
I don't think so.
Newton Highlands, but not my Newton Highlands side, so.
Are you saying it's Ward 6?
Well, it could be Ward 8. There's a lot of Newton Highlands in Ward 8 that some people forget is in Ward 8.
You know what? I'm happy to move this.
Yeah, just move it.
So we have a co-motion from Councilors Ryan and Councilor Noel, who simultaneously have moved approval. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Excellent. I believe that completes our work for the night. In terms of scheduling, is our next one in 2 weeks? Is that right? Jacqueline, is our next meeting in 2 weeks?
Yes, our next one is on the 20th.
And no holidays or anything get in the way of that, do they?
Nope.
Okay. Great. If anyone has anything important, let me know. We do have the tree ordinance to get done. We'll see if we're ready to do that on the 20th. If possible, we'll do it. Otherwise, we'll probably get to that soon. Councilor Baker, did you just okay?
Just to be clear, that's Wednesday night, the 27th. I may not be here, so I just want to.
I think it's the 20th.
Oh, the 20th. Oh, okay.
Do you want me to give you a minute to come up with a new excuse for that one?
Oh. 27th is what I was worried about. I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
No worries. Councilor Norton, you looking to weigh in here on our schedule?
Yeah, I did want to ask about the trees, when you think you'll be taking that up. Obviously, the end of the session is coming, and it was introduced at the beginning of the session, so I'm really hoping we can get it voted on before everything starts over.
Yeah, I'm hoping to do it. I got to talk to Jacqueline, get our ducks in a row. We'll see if we can get it done on the 20th. I'll let you know within a week, probably.
Okay, great, thanks.
All right. All right, everyone. Have a good night.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.